an ambitious target that seeks a low-carbon global economy over the course of this century.
President Obama commenting before he boarded Air Force One here in Paris to fly back to Washington after attending the United Nations Summit on Climate Change. He was talking about a potential global, legally binding agreement designed to curb climate change. His deputies are going to stay in Paris to help craft that plan. Well, as the president leaves Paris, our guest tonight is about to leave for Paris. Wake Forest journalism professor Justin Catanoso will cover this United Nations Summit over the next couple of weeks in his reporting, sponsored by the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting and the Center for Energy, Environment, and Stability at Wake Forest. Let's jump right in. Okay, we have nearly 200 leaders gathered to form this agreement. What's the big deal here? Why is this so important?
All right, so there's a lot of things why this is a big deal, but really this is the first time there's a bottom-up approach. So you've got 196 countries that have been offered the opportunity to say, how are you going to lower your carbon footprint? Okay? Always before this, it's been a top-down. The UN says, this is what you're going to do. It's never worked. It's failed for 20 years. This is different. The other big thing, China's on board. The United States is on board. The EU is on board.
All right, and speaking of, yesterday we reported and showed video of President Obama and his meeting with China's president. They both essentially said, hey, we both have to do something about this. And as you mentioned, the European Union has joined as well. Say they do reach an agreement. How will we know some of these other countries will be living up to their end of the bargain?
Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is while we're talking about 196 countries, really only 10 or 15 account for about 75% of all carbon emissions. So we're talking about the biggest countries in the world, the most industrialized countries in the world. If those 10 or 15 are on board, if they are aggressively reducing their carbon emissions, and it's a hard thing to do, it's not going to be easy, but we only need 10 or 15 countries, we don't need 200.
So checking up on each other won't be as complex as having 200
Listen, here's
plus.
the deal. Every one of these countries gets what's happening right now. They see the effect of global warming. They see the effect of climate change in their own countries. And these are countries that are ready to do something about it.
All right, back here at home, it's going to be a tough sell. Many on the right don't believe global warming is a big threat. But Donald Trump just yesterday called the president's insistence that it is a threat one of the dumbest things he's heard. Based on your report, though, reporting and research, what is the consensus among both the scientific and world communities that this is a big threat now?
The United States is pretty much the only country on earth that has any kind of level of skepticism about climate change. It's just true. 99% of all climate scientists believe that climate change is man-made. And there's one important reason. I'm going to give it to you very quickly. 150 years ago, before the dawn of the industrial age, the amount of carbon in the air was 220 parts per million. And we had this greenhouse effect that was very thin. Think of it as a blanket in the sky, okay? It was just the right thickness. We are over 400 parts per million right now of carbon in our atmosphere. That blanket is thicker, and so when the heat comes through the sky and it bounces back off, it's trapped. That's why we're warming, and that's why we're seeing all these effects.
Others argue we should be putting a bigger emphasis on terrorism, that's the bigger threat. Could terrorism play a role in what comes out of Paris? We are in Paris, by the way, considering what happened back in November 13th.
You know, I'm staying in a neighborhood where all the bombs went off.
Exactly.
So the fact of the matter is we got to do both. It's not an either or. Something has to be done about terrorism, and a lot of people are working on that, and we cannot ignore global warming any longer.
Very quickly, bottom line it for me. If we don't do something, what are the consequences?
The consequences are catastrophic in the next 2 to 3 generations. It is conceivable that if we warm another 6 to 9 degrees, think about your body temperature. Normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees. We have already warmed up to 100 degrees. We are all running a fever right now. If we rise 6 more degrees, 106 means dead. Dead.
Interesting.
That's the worst case scenario.
All right, well, look, maybe you can come back and talk about what you learned. Maybe after the first of the year. Now, to read all of Justin's reporting while he's in Paris, just go to his website. You see it there, justincatanoso.com. Thank you. We'll look forward to it. Have a great trip.
Bon voyage. Thank you.